Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Tuesday, November 7th. It's about 11:30 in the morning, pretty late in the morning, but I made myself sleep in as much as I could this morning. I'm trying to bank up a little bit of a sleep to feel better, feel more rested, and this is actually coffee number 2. Usually by 11:30 in the morning, this could be coffee number 3 at the least, but yeah, I woke up later than I normally do. And the first thing I did this morning was catch up on a few YouTube videos. Some people that I'm following, and I just wanted to see what they were up to. In particular, I wanted to catch up with Itchy Boots because I was a little bit confused about what she's doing. She was riding her motorcycle through Africa, and she was in the middle of West Africa when, for a variety of reasons, she decided to break her journey there, fly back to Europe, and then she was going to take a break and then eventually go back to West Africa, I guess after the rainy season was over, reunite with her motorcycle there, and then continue the journey. And then I guess in Europe she did some rallies, and I don't have much interest in rallies of any kind, so I didn't watch any of those videos. But then after the rallies, she suddenly appeared in India, in the Ladakh region, and she's going to ride a motorcycle through the mountains of Ladakh. I should have looked up the proper pronunciation of that area. And so out of the corner of my eye, I've kept seeing new videos from her journey in India. And I'm interested in those. I just hadn't gotten around to watching them. So this morning I thought, okay, let's dive into one of them, the very first one in India, and get caught up. So I watched the whole video. It's about 30 minutes long, and it's very much like all of her motorcycling videos, to be honest. Just opens with her talking into the camera, good morning, internet, talking about what she's going to do, and then it just cuts, sort of like a smash cut to her on her motorcycle, and now she's riding through, beautiful mountain scenery. But one thing I noticed, like she has a definite pattern to all her videos. She basically, it's almost like cookie cutter now, exactly the same sequence of events. And there's always the drone footage, which is kind of the highlight of her videos, I think. But I noticed that there were no drone shots this time. And that makes sense, of course, because that part of India, is right between India, China, Pakistan, and there's, border disputes have been going on forever between those countries over this region. So I'm pretty sure, she doesn't say this in the video, but I'm pretty sure that she was told, or she knew in advance, that drones were not allowed. And I think that's a part of the country, part of the world where you don't want to mess around. You don't want to be out there flouting the laws and, flying a drone and then getting caught. That would not be good for that part of the world. They're pretty serious about their security. So yeah, no drone shots at all. And I noticed that in particular because I often feel that way where I'm riding my bike, or I was riding a scooter in Sumatra recently, and I'm talking about, everything I'm seeing and how beautiful it is. And then I switch over to somebody else's video from the same region, like the Lost Boys, and suddenly, like, whoa, they've got all this amazing video of the region from the air, and it looks so much better than my video because, yeah, they have a drone and they've got these aerial shots, this amazing cinematography, and I can only see what I see with my eyes. I can only take video at ground level because I'm not up there flying a drone. And I talk about that from time to time, about how I'd like to have a drone. It would be a lot of fun, but at the same time, it always seems to me that from a strict travel experience point of view, drones are fake because it shows you what that area looks like, yes, but if you go there, you're inspired by that video from the Lost Boys, like, wow, it's so beautiful there, I want to go there. Well, you can go there, but you're not going to see any of that beauty because unless you fly your own drone. And even if you fly your own drone, you're still not seeing that beauty with your own eyes. You can film some video, take it back to your hotel room and play it on your laptop, and it's like, wow, that was so beautiful. But you're not physically experiencing it because you can only see from ground level. I mean, if you're hiking, climbing at high altitudes, going to viewpoints, yeah, that's real. But, drone video is not real from a human point of view because you would not see that when you go there. So I always have that, I go back and forth about drone style video. Certainly looks amazing, but it's a little bit fake in a way. So in this case, I noticed she was riding her motorcycle, and then she saw some, beautiful rivers down below, and then she says, "Oh, look at that! Though, the color of the water is so interesting." And then I know from all her previous videos that would be a cue. It's going to click into drone shots, and now you're going to see the river and the color of the water and the mountains from a drone. But in this video, it didn't switch into drone video. So that made me think, it's probably not allowed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she left her drone in Africa. She did mention that she didn't even have her normal navigation systems that she mounts on her motorcycles. She doesn't have her GPS device with her. She left it behind in Africa, which really surprised me because I thought that's one of the most important pieces of gear. Because she knew she'd be riding a motorcycle during her break, but I guess she decided or thought she wouldn't need her GPS tracking devices. But anyway, she left all of that in Africa, and maybe she left her drone behind in Africa as well. That could be another reason she's not shooting with a drone, but that seems unlikely. I think she has more than enough money. She could just buy a drone, for this one trip. It's not like, it wouldn't be a financial reason for her, like leaving her drone behind and thinking, oh darn, I can't use my drone. If she needed a drone, she would just go buy another one. So my assumption is that you just can't use a drone in that part of India. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I had my usual itchy boots thoughts, when I was watching this video, because for me, it's not really my style. I mean, I can't argue with her style. That's obvious, because this video, the one I watched, I think it already has over 2 million views. So I guess that's a combination of her. She's very popular on YouTube. People want to watch what she's doing. But she's also going to a very beautiful part of the world, a very rugged and challenging place to ride a motorcycle. And apparently she's riding a brand new pre-production motorcycle, an Enfield. And I guess in the motorcycle world, if you have a YouTube video that has, Enfield, let me look up the full name of this motorcycle. I found it. It is a Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 pre-production. So it's not even on the market yet. Nobody can buy this motorcycle. So it's I assume she has a connection with the company, and they're letting her use the bike, maybe for free. She didn't buy it, I don't think. I don't know if she bought it. No, I think she said she didn't buy it. It's just loaned to her, and that for that reason she didn't give it a name. And I really approve of that, because I never like it when people name their motorcycles or their bicycles or their scooters. That's just one of my personal quirks, I guess. And when the person starts talking to their motorcycle all the time and using the name, as if the thing can talk back to them. Yeah, I don't have a big problem with it, but it does. It's one of my pet peeves. One of the many Planet Doug pet peeves. But she didn't give this motorcycle a name because it doesn't belong to her, and she's not going to have it in her life for a long time. So she didn't bother to give it a name. But I guess there's a big audience out there, motorcycle enthusiasts. It's a big group worldwide. And if they see, oh, Royal Enfield Himalayan pre-production, they'll click on the video to learn about the motorcycle. Though, as Itchy Boots confesses right at the very beginning, she doesn't really know much about the bike. She doesn't know all the specs about it. So, she knows what works on YouTube and what doesn't. And if she goes into, high detail about the horsepower and all of the technical specs, she'll lose her mainstream audience. They're not interested in that. But anyway, so that's what she's doing there. And as I said, it's a quite typical Itchy Boots video in that it focuses heavily on riding the motorcycle. Like it opens with her on the motorcycle going. And for me, I think of that from two different points of view. I'm not that interested in a video like that because I want the whole story. I mean, it's just like out of the blue. The video before this one, she was on a rally somewhere in Europe. And then that video is over. And the very next video, boom, she's riding a motorcycle through India. And, my Planet Doug brain, I'm like, what happened in between? Like, I want all the details, the planning of the trip, getting this deal to use the Royal Enfield Himalayan motorcycle, getting the visas where she needs to go, she even mentions that as she's riding her motorbike, she's been in the town of Leh, L-E-H, for a few days to get acclimated. It's very high altitude. So before she started her trip, she wanted to spend a few days there and let her body adjust to the lack of oxygen. And then while she was there, of course, she was outfitting her bike and getting all the gear ready. And she had to get permits to go into this area because it is politically and militarily sensitive. She had to go get permits. But she doesn't show any of that, doesn't talk about any of that. She just says, yeah, I've been here for a few days getting acclimated. I had to get permits and I had to get outfitted and here we go. And I want, I want 25 videos about setting up the trip. I want to know everything that she did and all the details, all the behind the scenes planning and logistics. And the town of Leh, I'm sure I could go to that town and spend a month in the town of Leh itself. And there would be so many interesting things to do. Just to spend a few weeks in that town would be fascinating. But again, she knows what she's doing in terms of a YouTube audience. That's why she gets 2.1 million views on this video. In terms of other technology, I noticed she's still running a GoPro Hero. Was it a Hero 11 or does she have the 12 now? I'm not sure. But she has a GoPro mounted on her motorcycle handlebars here, kind of low down. She doesn't try to raise it up high, which I guess, makes sense for safety reasons and for convenience, as I know only too well. If you mount your camera just right there on the handlebars, it's very easy to do. But as soon as you try to raise it up and get it further away, things become very complicated. So she has a GoPro here and then a 360 camera here. And one thing I've noticed over all of her videos, there's this video in particular, at the end, there's kind of an end credits scene. And I've noticed she's stuck in a few of these scenes from time to time, and I really enjoy them because one way she uses the 360 camera is when she walks away from the motorcycle, she just starts it recording. So the 360 camera is recording all the time, even when she's walked away from her motorbike. And then it records other people coming up to her bike. So in this case, there were some Indian men who saw her motorcycle, thought it looked really cool, and they wanted to pose for selfies with her motorcycle. So, they're kind of looking around for her because, they kind of feel like, yeah, we shouldn't mess with this person's motorcycle, but they want the picture. So they're looking around like, oh, she's not paying attention. Quick, take my picture. And he puts on his sunglasses to look cool. Then his friend tells him to put his hand on the handlebars, to pose with the motorcycle. And then they take a picture and then they're all casual, like, oh, pretending that they were, that they weren't doing anything, And yet the entire thing was recorded by her 360 camera. And the 360 camera is very unobtrusive from that point of view. It doesn't, the screen is off. It doesn't look like it's recording. It doesn't even look like a camera, to be honest. Like even a GoPro, you can turn all the lights off. So even though it's recording, it's still dark, but you can see where the GoPro is pointing. So you have a sense, okay, that's a camera that could be filming in that direction. So you just don't get in front of it, right? But with the 360 camera, there's nowhere to hide. And, it's filming all the way around, so it captures everything. And she's had a few very interesting clips. So that's one way she uses the 360 camera, and I kind of get a kick out of that. I still don't like her music. I guess I'm very much in the minority there because I see a lot of comments on her videos from people saying how much they love the music. And of course, if your music is getting you 2 million views, you know, don't fix it if it ain't broke. But the music is always, she chooses the same music all the time. Orchestral, it's orchestral music and very grand, you know, very, very epic for everything. And to me, it always feels a little bit inappropriate to the moment, a little bit too grandiose. And it's always the same, you know, it's the same basic music. So it's not like she's looking for new music and trying to do something interesting and creative. It's just like, well, this music seems to fit, everybody seems to like it, so let's just keep putting it in. And yeah, I just don't like that music. In her case, it often does work because she's usually pairing it up with like really epic cinematography, like drone footage of amazing landscapes. So she can get away with it. But I have seen lots of other YouTube videos where someone is just shooting quite normal stuff, where they're just, you know, riding their scooter like me, you know, my little goofy scooter in Sumatra, riding down the road. And I know that in my mind, like when I was riding my scooter in Sumatra, it really did feel epic to me because it was my experience, you know, and I'd wake up in the morning, get on the scooter, and I'm just like, it's like, oh man, this feels amazing. And in my head, that epic music fits the mood, but I know the video itself, if you look at that video from another person's point of view, it's just like it's just a dude on a scooter, a tiny 125cc scooter, and then just going down a normal road. You know, it looked very epic to me at the time, but to pair that with this epic orchestral music doesn't really fit. And I've seen other YouTubers do it, and then it always feels really weird to me. It's like, whoa, that music is way over the top, you know. But of course, who am I to give advice about anything? At this point, all I ever use is YouTube music. Like I get my music from the YouTube library. I've never signed up for, you know, Epidemic Sound or any of the big audio providers. I just use whatever YouTube gives us for free. And because of that, I often end up using the same music over, you know, multiple times. Because I'm editing one of my videos and I get to a point where, okay, I want to put some music in here. I just go to my folder where I have all of my YouTube music and I just start playing them one by one by one until I hear one that seems to fit that moment. And it's always the same track that appeals to me as soon as I get to it. I like this. And I liked it now, but I also liked it for the last video and the video before and the video before. So I've used the same music multiple times, mainly because I don't have access to a wide range of music. You know, I don't use Epidemic Sound. I would love to. A big advantage to Epidemic Sound is that if you pick an instrumental track that you like, and you use it, Epidemic Sound has, you know, computer programs running that remember what song you chose, and then it will populate a whole screen below it of all new tracks that sound like that one. So it's like, well, if you like this, you'll also like all of these. So basically you get the same basic melody, the same rhythm, the same type of instruments, but different songs, you know, so it's a lot less work. Even me going through my little YouTube audio library takes a long time. It can be really frustrating because all you want to do is pick a song. You know, it should be like 2 seconds and you're done. But, you know, 20 minutes later and I'm still going through my YouTube audio library trying to find something that seems to fit. And yeah, it can just drive you crazy. It takes so long. And it's so easy to make a mistake. Eventually, I just give up, and I'm like, okay, whatever, let's just put this one in. You know, who cares, right? But Epidemic Sound would make that process a lot easier, so it would be nice. And the other thing about Itchy Boots, she did mention in this video that she broke her hand. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't even know about that. So once I heard that she broke her hand, and I assumed it was in the rally, and so I went back to her last video before India, and her last video from the rally, and I noticed, oh, the title was something about breaking her hand or having a big accident or something. And then I didn't watch the whole video because, again, it was just her doing a rally race. So I just kind of fast forwarded until I got to the spot where I think the accident happened. But she didn't actually get the accident on video, so she doesn't actually have any video of her crashing, I don't think. So it just cuts from her riding her motorcycle to, boom, she's sitting somewhere and looking at her hand, and guy is touching it, and it looks all swollen, and somebody touches it. She's like, oh, wow, 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 wow. It's like, yeah, I think you broke her hand. I've always had a little bit of a pet peeve about that phrase, though, because I hear it a lot in MMA. Like, I watch a lot of mixed martial arts fighting, UFC, things like that. And they break their hands all the time, and yet they'll say, oh, I broke my hand in the first round or something, or, oh, I broke my hand during that fight. But that doesn't mean anything to me, because there's got to be, let me take a quick look just to get my facts straight, because I like clear and accurate facts. I'll be right back. I just looked it up, and the human hand has 27 different bones in it, right? And no matter which bone you break, they always say, oh, I broke my hand, right? But they say in the fight, oh, I broke my hand in the first round, but it turns out he broke this bone in this finger. So to me, the more accurate statement is, oh, I broke a finger, Anyway, it's just another of my pet peeves, And it turns out that the bone she broke, she showed an X-ray of her hand, and I was really confused about the X-ray too, because the X-ray showed, to me, it looked like a left hand, and it was looking at the left hand from this point of view, and it looked like it was this bone in the palm of your hand at the base of the thumb. So she basically broke her thumb. This bone that holds her whole thumb in place, that's the bone that she broke. And on the X-ray, it looks like the orientation looks like a left hand, but then in the video, her right hand is in a sling. So I guess she broke her right hand, but it looks like the left in the X-ray. I guess I have it flipped in my head for some reason. But anyway, she broke she broke a bone in her thumb. That's what she broke. But yeah. So anyway, she's in the rally, and I guess she had some other plans after the rally. She was going to do some other traveling, maybe another motorcycle journey, I assume. But then she had to cancel all of that and change everything because she had to get surgery and then wait for everything to heal. And now she's finally, well enough that she could go to India. And her trip is later than she planned, because that area, of course, in the wintertime, you couldn't go there on a motorcycle. But I guess she's at the very end of the season, so she's on a bit of a time limit. She's got to get her journey done before the snows come. But that's a whole other thing about storytelling. I can honestly tell you that if while I was in Sumatra, I crashed my scooter and broke my hand, well, you would know about it. You would get a blow-by-blow account of everything, in-depth analysis of exactly what bone I broke, how it was broken, and then I would tell the story in video or writing it down. But since I'm doing YouTube, in video of getting from where I crashed to a hospital, seeing the doctor, the surgery, the recovery process. I mean, the whole story would be laid out. And then she basically jumped from doctor visit to India riding her motorcycle, and that whole story is completely just not there, right? Which again is smart for her, because I guess videos like that would not gain a lot of views and wouldn't make her any money. And yeah, she knows what she's doing. But anyway, yeah, she broke her hand in the rally and then had to sit around for quite a long time healing up and getting surgeries, and now she's finally well enough to go to India. So Yeah, that's the only video I've watched so far, and I'll continue on and watch the rest of them. Looks like it should be interesting. I just called up an anatomy page from the online Britannica, and it shows all the bones in the human hand. And I guess the bone that I'm talking about that she broke is a metacarpal. So each finger and the thumb has a metacarpal, a proximal phalange, and a distal phalange. Whether I'm pronouncing those properly, I don't know. And it looks like there's something else, a little one there in the middle called a sesamoid, but we can kind of ignore that one. So the bone, oh, I see. The bone has three. The base is the metacarpal. That's the one she broke. Then the next one is the proximal phalange. And then the last one is the distal phalange. But fingers have four. So it has a metacarpal, and then it has a proximal phalange, then a middle phalange, and a distal phalange. So the fingers have four bones, but the thumb has three big ones. So she broke a metacarpal, which is interesting. And I did see a couple of other websites that said there are 40 bones in the hand. So maybe there's some debate about that, but I think the Britannica says 27 as well, I think. So I'm going to go with that. I also watched a couple of videos from this YouTuber that I just discovered called Ryan Osmond, and he popped up in my YouTube feed because he shot a video about the Osmo Pocket 3. He bought one of those cameras, as just about everybody in the world did except for me. And so that's why he showed up in my feed. And then I did a bit of a deep dive into his channel, and he seems to be some kind of a digital nomad that makes money shooting video or creating content for big brands like Red Bull and Patagonia, companies like that. Seems like that's how he makes his money, but he also shoots YouTube videos, and looks like he's decided to do more and more kind of YouTube travel videos. He's putting more effort into that, I think. And he was in Indonesia. So that's kind of how I got interested in him, the Pocket 3, and then being in Indonesia, being a YouTuber, shooting a lot of videos about being a digital nomad, how he makes money, how he lives, that kind of thing. A lot of behind the scenes content, which I enjoy. So the first video that I watched was when he flew to Indonesia. So apparently he was in Europe. He was in Amsterdam, I think. He doesn't say what he was doing there, but I guess he says he works on projects all around the world. So I guess he's flying all around the world doing his work. And then he was in Amsterdam working on something, and he saw that there was a really cheap flight from Amsterdam to Jakarta. So it was kind of an impulse decision. He's like, wow, I can't resist that. It was like 35 pounds or something like that. I mean, it was 35 euros, maybe 70 euros. Anyway, really cheap flight. So he just hopped on it and he flew to Jakarta. And he shot a video, typical kind of travel vlog in Jakarta. And just a couple of things jumped out at me. It's very short, like 6 minutes long, very fast paced, little clips here, there. And he's still in a stage of his life, I noticed, where he's hanging out with other foreigners. I was sort of talking about a lot of that when it comes to these other two YouTubers I'm following, Roberto Helu and Ryan Florence. There's these two people who are riding their bicycles through Africa, and they just have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of idealism and a lot of excitement, which I remember having 40 years ago, but I don't have quite that same level of enthusiasm or idealism anymore. And this guy, he's older, I think, than they are, but for some reason, he's staying in dorm rooms. I don't know why he's staying in dorm rooms. I assumed he'd be making enough money to just get a hotel room of his own. Maybe he prefers dorm rooms, because what tends to happen if you stay in a dorm, you more naturally meet other foreigners, other, backpackers, travelers, digital nomads like you, and then you end up hanging out with them. So that's what he did when he landed in Jakarta. He got a bunk bed and met the other guys, like, oh, you want to go out and get something to eat? And then before you know it, you've got 3 or 4, backpackers from all over the world going out as a group. And I guess they picked up a local guy or two, some Indonesians that they met, and they joined them for dinner, and then they all had a big meal together. And so it was a very social, very interesting little video. But I noticed 2 things in particular. One, when he landed in Jakarta, was it in Jakarta where he figured this out? He might have already gone to Bali. I think he was still in Jakarta, but he landed and his luggage didn't arrive. But he was smart enough to put an air tag in his backpack. And I've often thought I should look into some kind of air tags. They seem like they could be really convenient, just to stick one on your bicycle in case your bike gets stolen. You can track it down, put it in your camera bag or your knapsack and hide it somewhere. And then, yeah, if you get robbed, it gives you one, at least what happened to your stuff. You may not get it back, but you can see where it ended up. So he had an air tag in his backpack. So there he was in Indonesia. He landed, but he could see on his phone that his backpack was 4,000 miles away in some other airport. So he knew there was no point waiting around, right? Because he knew where his backpack was. If he didn't have the air tag, he wouldn't know. He'd end up waiting in the airport, right? And waiting for his bag to show up. But because he had the air tag, he could tell it had made it onto his flight. And I guess that's that's what happens when you fly to Indonesia for less than 100 euros, So budget airlines, they're going to lose your bag, perhaps. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it made me think, yeah, someday I should really, just for fun, even if they're not useful, I've often thought the technology would be a lot of fun to use, your air tags. I think, Apple makes them, and then there's like Android versions, like Samsung makes them, I think. So I plan on looking into them someday. And the other thing I noticed was he was out on the streets, and this was in Bali for sure, and he saw a dance performance. And he took, typical, Balinese dancing, and he took video of it. And I guess he didn't use the audio. I wonder if there was like a copyright concern or something like that. But anyway, he was taking video of that, and then he and the other foreigners were invited to join in, and join the dancing performance. And then he shot some video of the streets, but he included his own music over top of this whole sequence. And I was looking, and something about the music jumped out at me, because I've seen this happen over and over, and I was wondering whether anybody in the comments would bring it up. And I noticed that somebody did. So I was going through the comments, and someone said, hey, by the way, you're in Indonesia, but the music you were playing was Chinese. And that, that's not a very good thing to do, because you're essentially, which is what so many Westerners do, we take all of Asia and lump it into one category. And we see something Asian, and we automatically put Chinese music over the top, because we're more familiar with Chinese music. We think of Asia, we hear Chinese music, well, to us, that's Asian music. But of course, if you spend any amount of time in Asia, you quickly learn, well, no, that's Chinese music, very distinct from Japanese or Korean or Indonesian, Malaysian. Every country has its own style of music. But if you're a newcomer to this part of the world, you may not realize that. And when he was looking for music to put in his video, he was like going through his music library, whatever he was using, and he's like listening for Asian music. Oh, here's some Asian music, stuck it in. And it never even occurred to him that the music was from China, not from Indonesia. And for Bali in particular, I think that's more egregious, because Balinese music is quite distinct. It's very, very recognizable, as Balinese music. So yeah, hearing the Chinese music. For me, I heard the Chinese music and it's like, you're going to get in trouble. And he got in trouble a little bit. And he actually brought it up in his newest video. I just watched his newest video. And for some reason, he's now in Malaysia. He's in Kuala Lumpur. And because the video before that was in Bali, and then boom, out of nowhere, he's in KL, and he shot a video reviewing the Pocket 3. So he's comparing the Pocket 3 to a smartphone and to a GoPro. The point of the video is, you know, which one is better for like run and gun vlogging. Because the Pocket 3 is being marketed as a vlogging tool and being something really convenient to just whip out of your pocket and start filming, you know. And he was wondering, well, is that really true? So he shot a video comparing ease of use. Like, he wasn't really worried about image quality and low light capability and that sort of thing. He was thinking more from the point of view of, you're just out walking around and it's like, oh, there's something interesting, I want to take some video. What is the best camera to have with you? Which is the easiest to use, the fastest, the most convenient, you know. And that's what he shot his video about. But he's actually in Kuala Lumpur while he's doing that. I have no idea how long he plans on staying in Malaysia. I don't know if he's going to do videos from KL, or he's only here for a couple of days and fly back to Bali, perhaps. We'll find out. Yeah, he doesn't say what he's up to. But he did conclude in his video, he's comparing, like I said, the Pocket 3 to a GoPro to a smartphone. It is mainly a comparison between the Pocket 3 and a smartphone. The GoPro kind of got pushed to the side a little bit. But his conclusion, which kind of surprised me, was that a smartphone was better. And he prefaced that with a lot of qualifiers, talking about basically how he shoots video, which I can understand, because he was talking about just walking around, living your life, and now you're walking down the streets of Bali, and it's like, oh, look at that, that's really interesting. And then he just wants to, his camera is in his pocket, and now he wants to take out his camera, shoot that scene, and then put his camera away. So from that point of view, he concluded that a smartphone was superior. And that wouldn't work for me at all, like right out of the gate, because I don't shoot video that way. I walk around with my camera in my hand 100% of the time. I never put it away. I never turn it off. So this whole idea of like quick draw McGraw, you know, like you're walking around with your camera in your pocket or your camera in your knapsack, and now you see something, it's like, oh, I want to take video of that. Now you have to stop, get out your camera, turn it on, shoot video, turn off your camera, put it away. I never do that, you know. I wake up in the morning, I go outside. Even before I go outside, I turn on my GoPro. It's on here in the room, and then I walk outside, and it's here as an extension of my hand the entire day. It never leaves my hand unless I clamp it to a tree or to a bush or something. Yeah, I never put it away. I never turn it off for the entire day. That's the way I do things. So his whole approach doesn't really apply to me, because it's not like I have it in my pocket and I'm like, oh, look at that. And now I got to take out my GoPro, turn it on, and take video. I just have it all the time, you know. So totally different. But even from his point of view, I didn't really agree with his conclusions, but that's mainly because I've never understood how anybody shoots video with a smartphone. Everybody talks about how convenient it is and how easy it is. And I've tried a few times, but I just give up very quickly. And it's all about form factor. So, like in his video, every time he was demonstrating the smartphone, he has an iPhone, which makes a big difference, I think, because I think for shooting video, iPhones have some features that other other phones don't have, maybe. A friend of mine just told me that iPhones, for example, the front-facing lens and the selfie lens are almost equally as good. So one of my problems with shooting with a smartphone is that I can't use the selfie camera because it's really low quality. So I always have to use the front-facing lens, which is kind of okay if I'm filming in that direction, because you can hold your phone like this, here's the lens, and I can see the video on the screen. So I can, walk around like this and I can see what I'm filming. But what I always do is I film ahead of me. Now I want to turn the camera around and film me and go back and forth. And on a phone, that is so difficult to do. Like even holding the phone like this is annoying. It hurts my fingers. Like you can do this for 10, 20 seconds, but then your fingers start to hurt. You can't walk around all day pinching a phone like this, you just can't do it. But now I want to turn it around. Now they go, how do I turn it around? There's the lens, and I want to somehow turn this around to film myself. Like, what do? Do I turn it this way, which turns the video upside down? Do I turn it this way, which means my palm now is covering up the lens because it's on this side now? So I have to switch hands now to get it over here. Or I want the lens on this side, so now I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, do I do this? And then even the controls, like where you have to hit the screen and on and on and on. I just find it so problematic. And I have to use the front-facing screen. So even when I've turned the phone around successfully, and now I'm filming myself, I can't see the screen anymore. Everybody walking towards me, like everybody out there in the world, they can see the huge screen, see everything that's on my phone, that I'm filming, but I can't see anything. I don't know whether it's even recording because there's no tally light. There's no recording indicator. There's no rear-facing screen. There's nothing. And I find it really difficult to remember where the lens is, right? Because with most cameras, the lens is in the middle. So you just hold the camera here and you're in the middle, no problem. But with a phone, it's always on one side or the other. And I can't, like, am I centered in the video? I end up holding it over here because I've got the phone centered, but the lens is way over here and I'm way off center, and I try to keep it in the middle, and I don't know, the whole thing is just awkward to me. I just can never get used to it, doing this. And plus, of course, the main argument is that you always have your phone with you, so that makes it the most convenient. But that doesn't work for me, because I need my phone for so many other things. I need it all the time for Google Maps, for WhatsApp messages, for emails, for getting information, for booking hotel rooms, doing whatever it is. I need my phone, so I can't drain the battery of my phone. Like if I shoot video all day with my phone, the battery's dead, and then I can't use it to get back to my hotel. I'm lost because I can't use Google Maps anymore. So of course, what I have, if I use my phone to shoot video, I have to have a second phone for Google Maps. So the whole advantage of, well, you already have your phone with you, so you don't need an extra camera. That's not true, because if I'm using this for shooting video, I have to bring along a second phone for everything else, right? So I still need two things. And I noticed that this guy, Ryan Osmond, every time he was demonstrating how easy it was to shoot video with a phone, he was holding it like this. So he was holding it in portrait mode, which, I mean, that's how you're supposed to hold a phone. That's how it feels comfortable. It doesn't feel comfortable like this. It feels comfortable like this, but of course, if you're shooting YouTube video, you don't want portrait video. So to me, he was kind of cheating that way. It was like, yeah, look how easy it is to shoot video. But you're not going to be shooting video like that most of the time. You're going to be doing it like this. You need to hold it horizontal, not vertical. Plus, I think in his way of shooting video, what he's thinking about is shooting B-roll. So he would always be shooting away from him. So he's walking around, he's in the market. It's like, oh, there's a very interesting market stall. And then he takes out his phone, shoots video of that market stall, and then puts his phone away. It's like, okay, I get that. But if you have to, shoot in that direction and now shoot yourself and then now shoot you and a friend and, shoot. And that is ignoring audio. If you want to use an external microphone, now tell me, how do you mount a microphone on this thing and hold on to it, right? So when I've done it in the past, what I have to do is use a smartphone holder. So you've got one of these gizmos, and this works, You get your phone in there and tighten it down. Make sure it's not pressing on top of the buttons. I've done that so many times. By accident, you have this clamp. I almost did it again. Yeah, it's really hard to not put it on top of the buttons. You have to off-center it. You can't put it in the middle because then it covers up the buttons and it presses down on the button, and you end up doing like a factory reset because, you've held the power button down for 3 minutes, because it's being held by the clamp. So I find that really hard. So this is what I have to do, and then I mount this on one of my normal grips. Come on, get nice and tight there. And now I have a cold shoe mount on the top, so that's where I mount the microphone, and then you run the cord. But by the time you've done all of this, give me a GoPro any day of the week. Give me a Pocket 3. I don't want to deal with all of this nonsense, It's just way too complicated. And anyway. So, for the way he shoots video, I guess a smartphone makes sense, but makes very little sense for someone like me. I can record a clip here and there if, for some reason, I didn't bring a camera with me. It's like, oh, I can use my phone. But other than those emergency situations, yeah, I don't get it. But yeah, it works for some people. Does not work for me. And in my last behind-the-scenes video, I promised a pop culture update in the next BTS video. So here it is, my pop culture update. I'm still watching the South Korean superhero show called Moving. And I've been raving about that show a lot, and I continue to rave about it. I'm almost done the first season. It's 20 episodes long. So it's a big time commitment if you want to watch all of it. And I'm getting right towards the end. And unlike most shows, it's not disappointing me. Like with a lot of shows that I'm watching or that I have watched, and I'm really enjoying it in the beginning, in the middle, I'm kind of holding my breath, waiting for the show to stop being good. And this show did not disappoint me. It just kept me engaged all the way through to episodes 18, 19. I think I may be on episode 19 now, and then 20 is the finale. And yeah, it has not lost my interest in any way. I'm still really enjoying it. I think it's a really well done show. But with a caveat, I'll say it's not for everyone. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to be willing to have entire episodes where not much happens. It's not a, Avengers Assemble kind of show where they're fighting Thanos. There's a lot of, it's a human drama at a very small scale. A lot to do with politics, political intrigue, particularly with North Korea and South Korea. And I find that very interesting because I used to live in South Korea. And when you live there, you're aware of North Korea all the time. It's a big, big issue, of course. So yeah, for many, many reasons, I really enjoy the show. And there are a lot of episodes where, superhero abilities don't show up at all. It's more about the people and their stories. And you have to be willing to sit through entire episodes where you're confused, like you don't know exactly what's going on. You know you're going to learn about it later, and all the pieces will come together, but they're not spoon feeding you everything all at once. So you have to have some patience and you have to trust that everything is going to make sense eventually. And it might be, you might watch something in one episode and you're like, what the heck was that all about? And then 5 episodes later, it's like, oh, now they explain what that was all about. So you got to hang in there. But eventually they do clear everything up. So I'm enjoying that. One thing, I keep talking about this a lot, is that there can be good shows, and yet they can be divided into 2 groups. There's a really good show that you only watch once, maybe. But there can be good shows that you can watch over and over and over. And I've been thinking about this, wondering, well, how do you compare those 2? So, for example, Moving, this South Korean show, I think is a very good show, and yet I don't think I would ever watch it again. I mean, I could watch it again in 5 years or 10 years. I've forgotten what the show is about, and then it feels fresh, but it doesn't stand up to, like, I wouldn't get to episode 20 and then just start all over again on episode 1 and re-watch it, because a lot of what makes the show good is the storytelling and the world building and learning about the characters. But once you know all of that, watching it again, maybe it loses entertainment value. And I was thinking about this in particular this morning because out of nowhere in my YouTube feed, I started getting clips from the show The Expanse. And I hadn't thought about The Expanse for a long time because it's been quite a long time since the last season aired. And I remember that The Expanse has extreme repeatability. I love the show. I think it's an amazing show. And then I could watch an episode of The Expanse, and when I got to the end of the episode, just start all over from the beginning, just rewatch that episode, rewatch it again. And I'd get to the end of the season, watch all 8 or 10 episodes, however many they are. And as soon as the season was over, I just go right back to episode 1 and rewatch the entire season all over again. And I could do it a 3rd time. It was like the episodes are really good in terms of storytelling and character and world building, but they're also really entertaining. So you could, even though you know everything that's going to happen, you could just rewatch it over and over and enjoy it just as much every single time. So that is one way to divide up these shows. And Moving, for me, does not have that repeat watching characteristic, that The Expanse does. And I was watching these clips on YouTube, and I was thinking that, man, it's a real regret of my life that I can't watch The Expanse for a first time all over again, because that show to me was so good and so enjoyable. But I can never watch it like I did the first time. It'd be so amazing to be able to clear my brain. Like I have no memory of it, and I can just watch it from the beginning. But I can never watch it for the first time ever again. And that's just like, oh, so sad. And there's so many shows like that I knew nothing about them before I watched them, and I enjoyed them so much. And it's like, oh, if I could only watch it for the first time, have the pleasure of a first time watching, all over again. But yeah, can't do that in life, unfortunately. Next show in my world right now is something called Bodies. Really good, highly recommended so far. And I have some notes about it up here on my phone. It's a British show, of course. I think a lot of people have heard about Bodies. It's on Netflix, and it made a big splash. It's very popular. People are talking about it. Primarily written and created for Netflix by Paul Tomlin. I don't know who that is, Paul Tomlin. And it's based on a DC Vertigo graphic novel. And the graphic novel is also called Bodies. And the graphic novel was written by Shea Spencer and illustrated by Dick Ormston, Tula Lotte, Megan Hetrick, and Phil Winsdale. So Bodies, the first, well, I don't know if there's going to be more seasons, but In Britain and Europe, they call them series, not seasons. So the first series has 8 episodes, and it premiered on October 19th. I don't know whether there's going to be a second series or a third, but the first series has 8 episodes. So I started watching Bodies because it had so many good reviews, and people were raving about it, but it also has a bit of a science fiction, time travel, and police procedural and murder mystery elements, all of those combined. And I mean, that is like catnip for me. You know, I love a good police procedural. I love murder mysteries. I love science fiction, and I love anything to do with time travel. And again, I'm not giving anything away here because I think this is in the trailer, it's in all the marketing material, but the basic idea is the story takes place in 3 different time periods. Takes place, I think, in 1890, 1940s, and then in the far future. So the 3 different time periods, and there's a detective in each time period, and they're all investigating the same murder because the same dead body shows up in 1890 in a crime scene. It's like, oh, there's a dead body. Who killed this man? But that exact same body shows up in 1941, and a detective is like, oh, here's a dead body. Let's find out who killed this man. And then that same body appears in the future. And then we jump from each murder investigation one by one. We jump time periods, and we follow each detective as they're all trying to solve who killed this man. And obviously, if you're living in 1890 trying to figure out who killed this man, you have no idea that this body also appears in 1941 and appears in the far future, you know. And they're all connected, of course, all to do with time travel, all to do with science fiction technology. And hopefully, I'm a little bit worried. I got to be honest, I'm a little bit worried because it feels like they're building up the explanation to a really high degree. And I'm worried that at the end of the series, the explanation is going to be far-fetched or not very satisfying, or that all of the crazy things that are happening end up having no explanation. I'm a little bit worried about that because there's a lot going on. The story started very small at the beginning, and I was really enjoying it because of the small scale of the storytelling. But then over time, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. More people are involved. There's more intrigue, more elements, and it's getting so big now that, like, what could possibly account for all of this and still be a satisfying story? So I'm a little bit worried about that, but we'll see where it goes. So I'm really worried there's going to be like a Damon Lindelof effect. To be honest, I was watching the show and I started to think about Damon Lindelof because it looked like it was heading in that direction. And I thought, no, please don't have him involved in this show. It's like, please, no. So I went to, online, I looked up articles about the show Bodies. I wanted to double check that, Damon Lindelof was not a writer, creator, or producer. And I was so relieved to find out that he's not involved in this show. So like, oh, thank goodness. Because, he's the guy that's behind shows like Lost, and Lost has all these weird and crazy things going on, and you're really engaged in the show because the mysteries, like, wow, this is so wild, what is happening? You want to know the answer, and then you get to the end of the show and it turns out there is no answer. That all of that's crazy stuff, they just threw it in the show because it looks crazy and it looks wild and weird, and it turns out there was no reason for any of it. And that's a Damon Lindelof trait. He does that over and over in all the shows that he's been involved in. So when I saw Bodies, the story was getting bigger and was getting crazier, like weird things happening. And I'm like, oh no, please, not Damon Lindelof. It started to feel like it had a Damon Lindelof effect to it, but he's not involved. So hopefully by the time I get to the end, there will be satisfying answers to all the riddles, all the mysteries will be solved, and it will feel satisfying, to learn the reason that all of this is happening. I've already got a vague idea of what's going on, at least I think I do, because to my surprise, in the last couple of episodes, they've introduced a lot of information and a lot of characters that seem to be involved in what is happening. So it's almost like I already understand what is going on, and I just need the details filled in. But I'm wondering whether that's a red herring, that when we do get to the end, it's going to be like, okay, there's more going on than what they're telling me now. Because it does feel like they've already explained it, and now I just need the details. But we'll see. Maybe they're tricking me, and we'll see how it all works out in the end. I am keeping up with some other shows that interest me, but I don't think they have wide appeal, so maybe that's why I don't talk about them as much. But I do really enjoy some certain types of reality shows. For example, I'm watching the new season of Bering Sea Gold, the new season of Gold Rush, and the new season of BattleBots. I like the big robots, tearing each other to pieces. And there's a new season of BattleBots being aired right now, so I am watching those as well. I find them endlessly fascinating. One thing that occurs to me, though, I'm always in these shows like Deadliest Catch or Bering Sea Gold or Gold Rush. The main crews that are catching crab or dredging for gold or mining for gold, they're always having trouble getting crew, right? They're like, oh, we need to hire somebody to do this. We need someone for the crab boat. We need someone for this. And it's like, oh, I need a tender for my, they have these offshore dredges where they float a dredge out on the Bering Sea, and they put a big hose down to the ground, and they just sort of suck up all the sand and the rock, and then they filter out the gold. But while they're down there sucking up the gold, they need somebody on the boat keeping an eye on things, making sure there's gas in the engine and the oxygen is flowing, and they call those people tenders, right? They need tenders to be up on the boat. And every time on the shows, they're like, oh, I wish I could hire a good tender. There's nobody I could hire. I really need new crew. I need someone who's reliable, someone who shows up on time, and da-da-da-da. And the whole time I'm watching these shows, I'm like, me, pick me. It's like, I don't know how they have so much trouble hiring people. And I'm thinking that if I'm sitting there in Nome, Alaska, or near the Bering Sea Gold people or the Gold Rush people, and they need somebody to hire, I'm available. It's like, give me a call, put me on a plane, I'll be your tender. I think that would be like the most amazing thing ever. And I see all these people they hire that flake out on them all the time. They hire people and they just stop showing up for work, or they get drunk in the bars, or they get arrested, or something happens to them, or they're on the boat and they just don't do any work. They're not paying attention. They make mistakes. And I keep thinking, I don't know anything about dredging for gold. I don't know anything about catching crab, but I know I'm going to do a better job than any of these people you've hired. So I keep thinking, someone, give them my phone number, like hook me up with these guys on WhatsApp, let me know. I'll come in and do a season on the gold dredge. I'll work for you. But I think this season on Bering Sea Gold, they're having trouble with divers. For some reason, nobody can get divers because they're kind of the most important people. Like on some of the crews, the owners of the dredges, they do the diving themselves. So they're okay. They just need a tender. but a lot of them, for some reason, they don't dive themselves, so they have to hire divers. And for this season, for whatever reason, they're all having trouble finding divers. There just aren't enough of them available. And that I couldn't do. I couldn't do that for them because, yeah, I don't have the technical skills for diving. And when I've tried, I've done scuba diving in the past. You know, I've taken the courses. So I am a certified scuba diver, but I can't do it because every time I try to go under the water, I can't clear my ears. Like the pressure builds up, and then for people who do this as a hobby, you know, or do it professionally, for them it's not a problem. You know, they just, as they go down, their ears just pop. You know, you can just sort of pinch your nose and blow and pop, 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 and you can go down to the bottom, and then your ears pop as you come up. But for whatever reason, every time I've tried to do it, I go down underwater, the pressure builds in my ears, and there's nothing I can do to clear the pressure. The one time I tried, in order to pass the scuba diving course, you had to go down to a certain depth and perform a bunch of exercises. And then if you do it successfully, you get certified. So there was a time when I really had to get to the bottom, and I forced myself to do it, you know, like by blowing as hard as I could. And then my ears and nose exploded. Like just, there was like an explosion in my head. Boom! And then blood came pouring out of my nose. Not out of my ears, thankfully, but blood came pouring out of my nose because I just blew a bunch of stuff inside my head. And I've never gone scuba diving since that experience, but I have gone snorkeling quite a bit. And every time I would snorkel, I would practice clearing my ears, thinking I do really want to go scuba diving someday, and maybe as I snorkel, I can get better at it. So I would do all these experiments where I go deeper. I just swim underwater and go deeper and try to clear the pressure in my ears, and I could never do it. I tried and tried and tried. I read all the tips because you're not really supposed to do it upside down. Like if you're swimming down, it's harder to clear the pressure. But what I would do is just go down a little bit, and I could feel just a little bit of pressure, and then I would rotate my body so I'm like upright, and then try to clear it. But even then I couldn't do it. No matter what I did, no matter how many techniques I used, I could never clear the pressure. And I guess it's something to do with my sinuses, the way they're connected. I do seem to have a lot of congestion all the time. Things are blocked in there. I don't have ease of movement between all the cavities in there, I guess. Anyway, I've never been able to do that. So for, Bering Sea Gold, if they called me up on WhatsApp and said, hey, Planet Doug, we need a diver. You free? I'd love to say, yeah, I'm free, I'll fly right in, but I couldn't do the diving. But if they ever needed a tender, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, and it does strike me as odd because these shows are extremely popular, all of them, Gold Rush, Deadliest Catch, Bering Sea Gold, and you'd think that they'd be so popular that people would contact them from all across the country wanting to get on their boat, to work on their mines, to do all these things. But I do wonder if maybe the TV production crew knows that some of the fun of the show is seeing all these like local people that they hire, just random people that they hire, being unsuitable and failing and screwing up and making mistakes. And then if they somehow start hiring people that apply for a position from all over the world or all across the United States or Canada, then maybe it's like bringing the television production and the gold mining close together, like it's too much. It's like, they're talking to the new crew member on the crab boat, and his story about how he got hired. Oh yeah, I was watching Deadliest Catch on TV, and then I reached out to the captain, and he hired me. And I was like, hold it, that's too. The worlds are colliding now, and maybe they don't want that. I have no idea. But it seems to me like people from all over the world would make the journey to like Nome, Alaska, just to see where the TV show is filmed. and then they would be hanging out there, and they would track down the famous captains from the show and, you know, drop off a resume. It's like, hey, if you ever need somebody, you know, here I am, you know. Though I don't think I could do that either. Like, I think on the show Deadliest Catch, to a certain extent, they underplay how physically difficult that job is. To me, they overplay how dangerous it is, because the whole theme of the show, of course, is deadliest catch. Like, you could die, you know, everybody, the boat could sink and everybody could die. It's like the most dangerous job in the world. But I've been watching Deadliest Catch my entire life. I've seen every episode of every season, and the danger has never really appeared. There have been crabbing boats, I think, that sunk. People have died, have drowned, but they were never on the show. Like, no boat on the show has ever had a truly serious problem. And some of the crew members have had injuries, but the injuries have never been as serious or as critical as the reputation of the job, you know. And every single episode, they talk endlessly about how, oh, we have to get 20,000 more pounds of crab, and if I don't get the 20,000 pounds, I'm going to lose my boat, going to lose my house, I'm going to lose everything. You know, it's like all this tension about, oh, we will never ever manage to achieve our quota. This could be a disaster if I don't catch the crab, I could lose everything. But in all the years I've watched Deadliest Catch, every season, every episode, every boat has always caught its entire quota, every single time. Like, they've never, ever not caught crab, right? So they do overplay how risky it is as well. Like, throughout the entire episode, the tension is always around, oh, we gotta find the crab. You know, they pull up the crab cages, oh, it's empty. Oh, I'm going to lose everything. Oh, I'm going to go broke. I'm going to go bankrupt. You know, I'm going to lose everything. And yet by the end of the episode, every single boat has filled their hold with the crab they needed. They've never failed that I can remember. So all of that sort of stuff gets overplayed, how dangerous it is, how difficult it is. But they seem to underplay how physically difficult it is. I mean, maybe I'm not being truthful there, because they do show how hard it is, and a lot of the crew members talk about it, and yet I still think they're underplaying it, because I've done similar things in my life, just on the, you know, a little bit of physically challenging work like that, and I know that it is always far more difficult than you think. And I'm pretty sure there's no way, even when I was young in my 20s and 30s, I could not have done that job, like working on the deck of a crabbing boat, the hours they put in, the physical discomforts and conditions. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could handle it. But every other job I could do. You know, put me in a rock truck. I'm sure I can drive a rock truck. I can learn how to run a loader. I can monitor one of their, I can't fix it, you know, I don't have the skills to weld and rebuild engines, you know, but I can keep an eye on things, and, you know, I've had jobs where I've needed to do that. I can get on a gold dredging barge and be a tender. I can do all those things. So give me a call, and I'm on my way. So we'll see. And I think that is it for my behind the scenes this morning. I'm going to wind down here, get started with my day. So thanks once again for keeping me company. As you can see, I do like to tell stories from my life. Even the smallest events get a big long story. That's just the way my brain works. So that's it, shutting down, and I'll see you in the next video.